The Lagos night hummed with life far below, but in Minho Han's penthouse, there was only silence. Amy stood by the window, arms folded tight across her chest, staring at the endless city lights. They blurred slightly through the faint sting of tears she had fought back all day. She pressed her palm against the cool glass, grounding herself, willing her heart to steady. Behind her, Minho said nothing. For a long, unbearable moment, he just looked at her, a man caught between restraint and desire. His expression was unreadable, yet his silence said everything. Then, without another word, Minho crossed the distance between them. The kiss was soft at first, hesitant, like he was testing the very idea of allowing himself this one forbidden indulgence. Amy gasped lightly, but her hands moved on their own, gripping his shirt, pulling him closer. Minho deepened the kiss, letting go of whatever walls he had been holding up, and for a few fleeting seconds, they both existed in a world where nothing else mattered. When they finally pulled away, breathless, Amy didn't know what scared her more, the kiss itself, or how much she wanted more. But peace, as she was about to learn, never lasted long in Minho's world. The next morning, Minho was gone before she woke up. Amy stirred in the massive bed, feeling the emptiness where he had been. She sat up slowly, the silk sheets pulling around her, still reeling from the night before. Her fingers brushed her lips, the memory of his kiss replaying over and over like a forbidden song. But reality crept back fast. She found herself wandering his penthouse, unable to help herself. It wasn't just curiosity, it was an attempt to understand him. Minho Han, the man who seemed like an unsolvable puzzle. His study was as pristine and controlled as the man himself. Stacks of documents arranged with surgical precision. A set of vintage Korean books lined the shelves, titles she couldn't read but somehow knew meant something to him. On his desk, a single black and white photograph of a younger Minho with his father, their expression solemn but proud. Amy felt a pang of something she couldn't name. By noon, her phone buzzed. Emergency meeting. At HanCorp headquarters, the air felt heavy, oppressive. Inside the boardroom, Minho stood at the head of the table, his posture immaculate, his expression carved from stone. Across from him lounged Han Junsu, his uncle, with the casual arrogance of a man who believed the room already belonged to him. "You're letting a girl from the streets destroy everything we've built," Junsu spat, each word laced with venom. "This isn't about her," Minho shot back, his voice sharp as glass. "This is about control. You've been undermining me from the start." The room erupted in shouting, board members taking sides, voices overlapping, the chaos of a family business at war. And then, like a god descending, the old man spoke. "Enough," said Chairman Han, Minho's grandfather, his voice carrying the weight of decades of authority. Silence fell instantly. His gaze locked on Minho. "Do what you must. But protect her. At all costs." Amy couldn't shake the feeling that someone was watching her. Her phone would ring late at night, an unknown number, silent on the other end. Sometimes, she'd arrive at work to find her desk slightly rearranged, drawers left ajar though she'd locked them the night before. She couldn't afford to quit. This job wasn't just a paycheck, it was survival. When Amy walked into the HanCorp building later that day, the tension was palpable. Employees whispered as she passed. Security was tighter. The atmosphere felt suffocating. Before Lagos and HanCorp, Amy's life had been a string of close calls. She grew up in Ajugunal, one of Lagos' toughest neighborhoods, a place where dreams rarely survived, and innocence was a luxury few could afford. Raised by a single mother who worked 2 jobs just to keep food on the table, Amy learned early what survival cost. Her father had vanished when she was 10, leaving behind nothing but debt and a bitter taste for men who made promises they never kept. When her mother fell ill unexpectedly, Amy was left with nothing, no family, no safety net, only a pile of medical bills and a world that didn't care if she sank or swam. She clawed her way through secretarial school, juggling menial jobs just to keep a roof over her head. The HanCorp position had felt like a miracle. But miracles, she was learning, came with a price. Minho was becoming her anchor in this chaos, though she hated to admit it. He was still infuriatingly precise, emotionally guarded to the point of cruelty at times, but every time he looked at her like she was more than just an assistant, something shifted inside her. But Minho had his own demons. She saw it in the way his shoulders stiffened whenever Seoul called. In the way he avoided talking about his family unless forced. And in the way his uncle prowled the halls of HanCorp Nigeria like a predator circling his prey. One night, she broke the silence. "You don't have to protect me," she said softly. Minho didn't turn from the window. "You think this is about you? My uncle doesn't want you gone because of who you are. He wants you gone because of what you mean to me." Her heart stumbled. "Why does he hate you so much?" Minho laughed, but it was bitter, humorless. "Because I exist. My father built HanCorp from nothing, but after his death, my uncle took over. My grandfather gave me this branch, Nigeria, to keep me away from Seoul. To keep me out of Junsu's reach. But I should have known he wouldn't stop until I was erased completely." Amy hesitated. "And if you lose this company?" Minho finally turned to her, his eyes dark with determination. "Then I lose everything. And he wins." Something in his voice, the quiet fury beneath it, reminded Amy of herself. Because she, too, knew what it was like to fight for survival. The sabotage began as whispers. At first, Amy thought it was paranoia, the lingering stares in the office hallways, the way conversations hushed when she entered a room. She convinced herself it was just the usual corporate gossip. Until one Monday morning, she was summoned. "Miss Johnson," barked a tall, broad-shouldered man in a dark suit. She recognized him as HanCorp's internal investigator. "We need to speak with you. Now." Amy's stomach dropped. They led her into an interrogation room, four walls painted in suffocating beige, a single metal table, 2 chairs, and a camera fixed in the corner. A man in a gray suit slammed a folder on the table, his face set in stone. "Do you know what this is?" Amy shook her head. "It's a copy of a contract worth over $2 million, leaked to a direct competitor last week. And it came from your system." Amy's throat tightened. "That's impossible. We traced the file's metadata. It came from your login, Miss Johnson." At 2:13 a.m. Her heart pounded. "I don't." "Who are you working for?" the man cut in, his voice rising. "Did Minho Han put you up to this? Did you do this for money?" Tears stung her eyes. "No. I didn't do this. I swear." The door burst open. "Everyone out. Minho." His voice cut through the room like a blade, cold and commanding. The investigators hesitated. "Now," he repeated, his tone sharp enough to slice air. They scattered, leaving Amy alone with him. For a long moment, Minho just stood there, staring at her. "You didn't do this," he said finally. It wasn't a question. It was a statement. Amy swallowed hard. "No." Minho exhaled slowly, then crouched in front of her. It startled her, Minho Han, kneeling. The immaculate CEO who never allowed anyone to see weakness. "We find out who did," he said quietly. For the first time, Amy realized Minho didn't just believe her. He would fight for her. But not everyone wanted Amy safe. Jansu, Junsu's daughter, was like a viper in stilettos. Beautiful, poised, and ruthless. She had made her interest in Minho no secret. And Amy? Amy was nothing but a thorn in her perfect plan. 2 days after the interrogation, Amy walked into the break room to find Jansu waiting. "You're braver than I thought," Jansu purred, stirring her coffee with delicate precision. "To stay here after what you've done." "I didn't do anything," Amy replied, keeping her voice steady. Jansu smirked. "Oh, sweetie. You don't survive in this world by being innocent. You survive by being useful. And right now, you're neither." Amy clenched her fists. "What do you want from me?" Jansu stepped closer, her perfume expensive and suffocating. "To remind you of your place. You're a temporary distraction for Miho. That's all." "And distractions?" She leaned in, her voice dropping to a whisper. "They don't last." Amy walked out before she said something she'd regret. But Jansu wasn't done. Miho's grandfather's birthday gala was supposed to be a celebration. Instead, it became a battlefield. Amy stood alone near the edge of the glittering ballroom, her red gown flowing like liquid fire. She'd never felt so exposed in her life, Lagos elites mingling with Korean executives, chandeliers casting golden light on a sea of judgmental eyes. She heard them whispering. "That's her? The girl causing all this trouble? She doesn't belong here." She ignored them. Or tried to. Then she heard it, two men, speaking in hushed Korean just a few steps away. "Miho must get rid of her," one said. "Or we will." Her blood turned to ice. She turned and froze. One of them was Junsu. Before she could escape, a manicured hand clamped around her arm. "Leaving so soon?" Jansu. Her grip was like iron, her smile as fake as the diamonds glittering on her ears. "Let go of me," Amy hissed. But Jansu only tightened her hold. Poor little Amy. Did you really think you could walk into our world and not drown? And then, Miho. He appeared from the crowd like a storm, his expression deadly calm. "Touch her again," he said in a voice that could freeze blood, "and you'll regret it." Jansu released Amy instantly, her mask cracking for the briefest second. Miho didn't look at her again. Instead, he took Amy by the wrist and pulled her through the crowd, ignoring the stares, the gasps, the whispers. That night, Miho drove her back to his penthouse. "You're staying here," he said simply. "Miho, I can't." "You can," he cut in, his tone leaving no room for argument. "You will. It's not safe for you to be alone." Amy opened her mouth to argue, but the look in his eyes silenced her. This wasn't about control. This was fear. Fear for her. The final blow came when Miho learned his uncle had petitioned the board to remove him entirely. But Minho Han was always 10 steps ahead. He spent sleepless nights gathering evidence, financial records, recordings, testimonies, while Amy helped him comb through files and decode messages. They worked side by side, night after night, exhaustion pulling at them, the quiet intimacy of their shared fight softening the walls between them. Sometimes, they didn't speak at all. Sometimes, Miho would look at her like he was memorizing her face, and Amy felt herself falling. On the day of the board meeting, Miho walked in with everything. He revealed the sabotage, the stolen contracts, the illegal dealings. The room erupted. Adyawai, one of Junsu's allies, was escorted out first, cursing under his breath. Then Junsu stood. "You think you've won," he sneered. "You've only delayed the inevitable. You don't understand the game, Miho. You've only survived this round." Miho leaned forward, his voice low and lethal. "Then keep playing. But next time, I won't just take your power. I'll take everything." The board voted in Miho's favor. But Amy saw it, the way Junsu's smile didn't falter as he left. This wasn't over. That night, Minho and Amy stood on his balcony, the city sprawling beneath them. "It's done," he said softly. Amy shook her head. "No. He's not done. You saw his face." Minho took her hand. "Let him try." She turned to him. "You sound so sure." "I am," he said, his eyes locking on hers. "Because this time, I'm not fighting alone." Amy leaned against him, letting herself believe, for now, that they had won. Weeks later, Amy returned to her apartment to collect her things. On her bed sat an envelope. Amy was under constant surveillance. Minho had assigned 2 security officers to shadow her, but their presence only made her feel more like a target. One night, after a particularly grueling day of damage control at the office, she found Minho in his study, his tie loosened, sleeves rolled up, staring at documents spread across his desk. "You should sleep," she said gently. He didn't look up. "I can't. Not yet. Minho. This isn't about one branch anymore," he cut in, voice low. "My uncle's not just trying to destroy me in Lagos. He wants me erased from HanCorp entirely. And if the board sides with him." Amy stepped closer, until she was beside him. "Then what?" Minho's gaze flicked to her. "Then I lose everything my father built. Everything I've bled for." Amy hesitated, then reached for his hand. It was a bold move, but she didn't care. "You won't lose," she said firmly. His hand tightened around hers. "Not if I have you." The words lodged in her chest, warm and terrifying all at once. The summons came 3 days later. Chairman Han was calling Minho back to Seoul. "It's not optional," Minho said grimly as he read the letter. "If I don't go, I've already lost." Amy's heart sank. "And me? You're coming with me." She blinked. "Minho. This isn't a request." Amy didn't argue. She couldn't. Because deep down, she understood, this wasn't just business. This was survival. Seoul was another world. The Han family estate was a fortress of glass and steel, perched on a hill overlooking the city. Inside, everything gleamed, marble floors, towering windows, priceless art. But beneath the beauty, Amy felt the coldness. The first family dinner was brutal. Junsu was there, smiling like a predator. Jansu too, dressed in perfect white, her gaze dripping with condescension. And at the head of the table, Chairman Han. He was smaller than Amy expected, a frail old man with sharp eyes that missed nothing. "So," the chairman said, his gaze sweeping from Minho to Amy. "You've brought company." Amy bowed politely. "Thank you for welcoming me, Chairman Han." His thin smile didn't reach his eyes. "We'll see if you still thank me when the night is over." Later that evening, Amy found herself cornered in the garden. Jansu emerged from the shadows like a ghost, her expression a mask of amusement. "You really don't know what you're in for, do you?" she drawled. Amy kept her chin up. "If you're trying to scare me, you'll have to do better than cryptic threats." Jansu smirked. "Oh, sweet Amy. This isn't Lagos. This is Seoul. This is our world. And in our world, people like you," she leaned in, her voice sharp as a blade, "don't survive." Before Amy could respond, Minho appeared, his presence like a sudden storm. "Run out of subtlety, Jansu," he said coolly. Jansu's lips curved into a mocking smile. "Just giving your little assistant a reality check." "Touch her again," Minho said, his voice as cold as the wind sweeping through the garden, "and you won't walk away next time." Over the next week, Minho prepared for the biggest board meeting of his life. Junsu had rallied nearly half the board to vote Minho out. If Minho couldn't swing them back, if he couldn't prove his uncle's corruption, it was over. Amy watched him work like a man possessed. He hardly slept, eating only when she forced him to. She spent hours by his side, combing through files, listening to his father's old recordings, finding connections that might save them. It was in those quiet, exhausted nights that the walls between them finally crumbled. One evening, as the city lights of Seoul glowed in the distance, Minho leaned back in his chair, rubbing his temples. "You should rest," Amy said softly. "I can't," he murmured. She reached for his hand. "Minho." He looked at her, and for once, the armor was gone. "You make me want to," he whispered. And then he kissed her, slower than in Lagos, deeper, as if every unspoken thing between them had finally found its voice. The boardroom was suffocating. Junsu sat with smug confidence, his daughter beside him. Minho stood at the head of the table, flanked by allies he wasn't sure he could trust. For 2 hours, arguments raged. Accusations flew. And then Minho dropped the bomb. Recordings of Junsu's illegal dealings. Documents proving embezzlement. Testimonies from bribed employees. The room erupted into chaos. Junsu's mask cracked for the first time. "You." Minho cut him off. "You wanted me erased. Instead, I've erased you." The final vote came in. Minho stayed. Junsu was stripped of power. That night, Minho and Amy stood on the balcony of their hotel suite, the Seoul skyline glittering like 1,000 stars. "It's over," Minho said, his arm around her. Amy rested her head on his shoulder. "For now." He kissed her temple. "For now is enough." And for the first time in what felt like forever, they allowed themselves to breathe. But somewhere, far away, Junsu watched the city lights, already planning his next move.